Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here today to talk about our partnership with the Calgary Police Service and to highlight the work we've been doing together over the past 5 years. Together, we've been implementing and evaluating a preventing workplace harassment and advancing gender equity approach. I'm super excited to walk you through how we've approached this work, what we've learned, and the impact we're beginning to see. Before we dive in, I want to take a quick moment to acknowledge the incredible team behind this initiative. Elizabeth Dessois has been our lead facilitator and designer, bringing both vision and creativity to the process, and Melissa Innes, who's led our evaluation work, ensuring we capture learning and impact every step of the way. Their contributions have been essential in moving this work forward. So before I get started into the approach, let me share a little bit about me. Hi, everybody. My name is Lana Wells, and I'm a faculty member in the Faculty of Social Work at the University of Calgary, where I've held the Brenda Stratford Chair in the Prevention of Domestic Violence since 2010. That's also where I found a research hub called SHIFT, the Project to End Domestic Violence. And really, our hub is focused on primary prevention, which is trying to figure out how we can stop violence before it starts. So today in this short presentation, I'm going to walk you through the consolidation of years of design, implementation, and evaluation of a strategy to mobilize men in violence prevention and advancing gender equity. And if you'd like to explore our research further, we have over 100 reports and lots of different partnerships. You can find our resources on our website, which is up on the screen on your left, preventdomesticviolence.ca. So why did we design a new approach to workplace culture change in male-dominated settings? As a research team, we saw some major gaps in the field. First, there was very little evidence on how to effectively change men's behavior, and research rarely focused on leveraging the workplace as a site for prevention. We also know that one-off trainings consistently fail to create lasting impact, and that men rarely attend or seek out primary prevention or prevention programs. And actually, in some cases, past efforts in a lot of our organizations and workplaces have actually backfired, creating resistance and making conditions worse for women. So all of this made it clear to us we needed a different approach, a more effective approach. So we asked ourselves a central research question. How can we design change efforts in male-dominated workplaces that could avoid triggering and backlash and instead create meaningful, sustained progress in advancing gender equity and preventing violence? Or even put more simple, how do we design change that actually works without backlash? And as Kim mentioned earlier, the Calgary Police Service was asking that same question. Over the years, they had brought in consultants and academics, and those efforts sometimes created more resistance. So when they saw our approach, they were excited about its potential. So now you might be wondering, well, what exactly is the approach? So this approach didn't begin with our work in the Calgary Police Service 5 years ago. We've actually been exploring this question for more than 15 years. Back in 2016, I'd received a research grant to work with 14 agencies and governments who are experts in this area. Together, we developed a workplace approach tailored to male-dominated settings. And in 2020, we released our evidence-informed framework, which is called Changing Context. It's up on the screen on your left, and it's also on our website if you're interested. It was written as a practitioner's guide. But at that stage, we hadn't yet tested the full approach. We had only tested elements of it in a real world setting. And so that opportunity came later through a federal Public Health Agency of Canada grant, which allowed us to adapt this approach and rigorously evaluate the model within policing. So that same year, 2020, we were invited into Calgary Police Service thanks to three incredible champions, Sarah Rowe, Nadine Wagner, and Kim Asaley, who's with you today. Sarah and Nadine first saw me present on this approach and recognized the fit and actually opened the door for us to begin working with the Calgary Police Service. They, along with Kim and many others, provided invaluable guidance and navigational support throughout the project. So when we agreed to partner, from there, the journey we started to work together. We immersed ourselves in Calgary Police Service culture, And we actually spent 9 months conducting research, going on ride-alongs, meeting people, understanding how the organization operates. And we also started to work with the executive leadership team, trying to pitch the approach, build in buy-in, and get them to actually surface the priorities that were important to the organization. And two emerged clearly. One, the first one was around diversifying the talent pipeline. And the second priority was preventing sexual and gender harassment in the workplace. So from 2022 to 2025, we began engaging in long-term cultural interventions within districts and units, and a process that we think continues to shape real measurable change today that I know you're hearing more about from Kim. So the purpose of our engagement with patrol district members was to try to create a more inclusive, respectful, and equitable work environment by shifting frontline culture, norms, and behaviors. The research is clear. The number one way to prevent sexual harassment and gender discrimination is by addressing the conditions that give rise to these problematic behaviors and establishing a culture that is inclusive, respectful, and equitable. So that's what we aim to achieve together. So you may be asking yourselves, what did our work in the districts actually look like? Well, first, we had to be invited in by the inspector. We take what we call take no hostages approach. This work only succeeds with general buy-in or genuine buy-in from the command team. And our first invitation came from an inspector who saw the value and took a chance on us. After that, word spread, and once inspectors began recognizing the impact, they were starting to request our support. So once invited in, we familiarized ourselves with this district, because remember, every district has its own culture. So we met with command teams, we attended parades, we went on ride-alongs, we joined trainings, and even attended barbecues. This helped us build trust and to understand the culture. We then consulted with members directly to hear what was working well and what needed to be improved. Based on their input, we started to design customized learning sessions around their priorities. Next, we recruited key influencers. So these are constables and sergeants who were nominated by peers because they were genuinely liked and respected. And remember, participation was voluntary. It was framed as a leadership development opportunity, and uptake grew quickly once members saw the benefits and trusted the process. Finally, we delivered learning sessions over 3 months, and they were about between 9 and 12 hours. And we did separate sessions for constables and frontline supervisors. And then to reinforce the learning, we followed up with email boosters, practical reminders, and tips that helped members continue applying the skills in their day-to-day work. So what made our approach different from traditional gender transformative approaches to preventing violence in the workplace? So first, we framed the work around psychological safety and belonging. We didn't start with gender equity or sexual harassment, topics that often trigger resistance. Instead, we framed the work around psychological safety and belonging, which directly impacts what officers care about: team performance, physical safety, social safety, and individual well-being. Second, we focused on building relationships and trust first. That meant we had a sustained presence. We went on ride-alongs. As I mentioned, we went to parades and barbecues, allowing us to have meaningful conversations about difficult topics that one-off trainings really never achieve. The third part of the approach is we customize to their needs. We design learning sessions based on members' own priorities, whether it's around conflict resolution, giving and receiving feedback, gossip, or retaliation. And these issues are connected to respectful workplaces and the skills required, like self-regulation, active listening, are core to violence prevention and reducing harassment in the workplace. The fourth is we reflected their reality and language. The scenarios and language in the training were tailored to policing. They weren't borrowed from other professions. The fifth point is we designed the approach to reach a tipping point for change in each district. That meant we worked with 25% of each district, the threshold that the research said is needed for culture shift, culture change. So we equipped influencers within concrete, everyday ways to signal healthy pro-social behavior and norms and to disrupt harmful ones. Lastly, our approach was not patronizing or judgmental. So much of what is offered around harassment training is patronizing and judgmental. So we created trust by engaging in a way that was respectful of the experience and values that they bring to the table. So you might be asking yourself, how did it work? Well, the evaluation data did show that engagement levels were high around the learning sessions and that members' confidence and skills to address problems and signal pro-social norms increased. Here are a few statements from the feedback forms, which were all anonymous. I've increased my confidence to address bullying and harassment and nip it in the bud. This session helped me to understand what I can do better to create safety and belonging. Depending on the situation, I'd use these strategies to call someone out right away or intervene one-on-one. And then the last one, I learned the value of influence and just how few people it takes to move a group in a positive or negative direction. Here are some representative quotes from members of the command team. These came from 2 different districts and were unsolicited. The first one, there has been a change in our district that is just about palpable. Not only do our folks value the training, they actually use the tools, which for cops is just about unheard of, LOL. The other one, I just wanted to say thank you for everything you accomplished in our district. In my 24 years within CPS, I have never seen a program implemented where there was such acceptance from the patrol group. I truly believe it had a lot to do with your delivery and approach in the sessions. And here's what the evaluation data showed as well. And this was based on feedback forms and some follow-up interviews that happened 6 months post-intervention. Well, you could see between 80 and 90% reported an increased understanding of the importance of psychological safety and belonging in the workplace, an ability to recognize and mitigate their own biases. They were more aware of workplace dynamics related to inclusion. There was a report in increased self-regulation. Lastly, there was an increase in confidence and skill to model pro-social behaviors, which is around healthy and respectful behaviors. And the last one, increased confidence and skill to disrupt problematic behaviors. And then, we also learned a lot over the 5 years of working together. And today I was just hoping for a few key takeaways that you can start to think about how to apply in your work when you're trying to advance gender equity and prevent sexual harassment. So the first is really around framing matters. Terms like gender equity or inclusion and belonging, as we know, can trigger resistance from some people and some members. And if we keep those terms front and center, we actually risk disengagement. We frame the conversation, as mentioned earlier, around psychological safety and belonging. And really, these are concepts that directly connect to what officers care about most. They care about performance, they care about well-being, and they care about team cohesion. So once trust and relationships were built, we could then move into deeper conversations around gender equity and sexual harassment in ways that felt more relevant and meaningful, and there was higher trust. The second key learning is around empathy matters, especially with everything going on today. We can see this. Understanding the source and nature of the resistance is an important step to addressing it. Fear underlies a lot of resistance in this type of work, and if you can address the fear with empathy and understanding, I think you can actually get somewhere. The third is really knowing your audience matters. Taking the time to learn the culture and build relationships is essential because it builds credibility and trust, especially when you're using their language and you're investing in understanding them. One member put it perfectly. I know you're outsiders, but you sound and you get us, and you really seem to get us. Fourth, this work takes time and long-term investment does pay off because the research is clear. One-off trainings don't lead to lasting behavior change, right? You can't just change the individual. You need to change the conditions around the individual. And our approach is more resource intensive. It is, but it's far less costly than continuing to invest in interventions that don't produce results. Lastly, I want to talk about network and bottom-up approaches to behavior change. They are effective. A promising way to change behavior we've learned is to change, as I mentioned, the social environment where those behaviors are created or enabled. and or socially reinforced and rewarded. So to change the norms, you need to change most of the behaviors because most people are highly sensitive to the norms in the group. This project was learning about how to signal pro-social behaviors, so to create a culture that doesn't support or enable unhealthy behaviors. All right. Before I wrap up today, I do want to share one unintended consequence as the result of our partnership. By being able to apply this approach and work closely with Calgary Police Service and many individuals within the system, we were able to also surface system and policy issues that we could then bring forward to senior management and the CPO and the chief. And we had regular meetings so we can update on what we were learning through the process. So on the screen are some of the larger reports that we produced alongside implementing and evaluating our workplace approach. So, for example, on the left, Elizabeth ended up interviewing 20 female members of Calgary Police Service to develop recommendations for the organization on enhancing career pathways for female officers. That work also ended up infusing and influencing our approach. The second one on your screen, we also completed a comprehensive review with Kim, who is deeply engaged in this, on how the service can address and prevent sexual and gender harassment. This report actually led to 12 pragmatic recommendations that I believe are all being implemented right now in the service. The last one is, together with CPS, we ended up co-authoring a joint submission to the Government of Alberta on reforms to the Police Act to strengthen workplace responses to harassment and discrimination. We also made a series of other recommendations around recruitment, promotions, and even CPS's public-facing website. So this system and policy work has already led to significant changes and does highlight the unique value of partnering with the university research team over the long term. Through the sustained collaboration, we were able to build a strong, trusting relationship, and one that I think really created benefits both for Calgary Police Service and for our research team, and for what we hope now the field as we start to teach and support others to learn how to engage in this approach. All right, to wrap up, I just wanted to, I want to thank you for taking the time. I want to thank Kim, who's with you today. I'm sorry I can't be with you today. But if you're interested in learning more about their approach, there's a few ways to stay connected with us. The first, up on the screen, you'll see we're going to be hosting a webinar with Nadine Wagner from Calgary Police Service on February 12th. And there's a webinar registration link. So if you want to use your phones to go on, and you'll have an opportunity to learn more and ask more questions. The second way is if you're interested and want to learn more, or you feel your organization may be interested, please connect with me directly, which my email is up on the screen there, lmwells@ucalgary.ca. So I want to thank you so much for your time today. Please give Kim a big high five for her work in this area. We would not have been successful or as successful without Kim, without Nadine, without Sarah, and many others that really supported our approach and really helped to actually shape the approach. And so I want to thank Kim, Nadine, and Sarah once again, and many of the leaders. It has been an absolute pleasure partnering with Calgary Police Service, and we're so excited to continue to advance this work in the field. Please enjoy the rest of your conference. Have a great day.